Hey, freaking Facebook minions! It's Chris and Karen. This is the best puppy in the universe. And Karen has a very important question to ask me, but she's a little shy to ask it. So, a mysterious voice, disembodied voice off the camera is going to ask it for her. You ready, Karen? She needs a belly rub.
She ready now? Okay. So, Chris, given that you have schizoaffective disorder, how how would you like people to treat you?
Well, that's a very good question, disembodied voice speaking for Karen. Which is maybe kind of interesting commentary on like the nature of my reality, disembodied voice, speaking from my dog. That's never actually happened. Anyways, but it could, couldn't it, Karen? Yeah, she's agreed. Um, so like, I think like, if you're like a normal person, going throughout life, like you don't usually like worry like, how are people gonna like react to like, the very nature of like my being, like who I am as a person. Um, but like since getting like diagnosed with like schizoaffective disorder, which was like over 10 years ago, I've had like a myriad of like rather negative experiences, and it's run the gamut from like getting beaten up because of my mental illness to people like just like finding out like, oh, you're crazy, like let me just treat you like garbage, like actively like garbage, like you're less than a person, so like why should I even bother with like most normal polite like necessities. um I've had people that are just like we meet, and it's like things are looking hopeful, and it's like like possibility for friendship is at like maximum like probability, right, Kieran? And then I tell them like, oh yeah, I got this thing, it's called schizoaffective disorder. And then it's like afterwards it's kind of like, man, that phone number that I've been texting is just not replying. It's like they don't exist anymore. I've had other people where like they're just, they seem like endlessly fascinated with my mental illness and ask all kinds of questions. And my basic assumption is like, oh yeah, like we gotta share this information. It's like people need to know because like it is kind of fascinating. And I've shared that information under the assumption that like, oh, they will help, when things get real. But then things do get real, and it's happened where like the people are like actively encouraging the psychosis. Um, and I realized that, oh, like all those times where I was being like super honest and just like emptying my heart to them and my experiences, I was just a sideshow freak to them. Like not even human, just a spectacle.
How does that make you feel?
It's, well, kind of confirms in a way like my base assumption about reality that I am worthless. And it's like, I don't want to be confirmed in that like day after day, that because it's not true. Like my dog loves me, don't you, Karen? Yeah. Um, so it's like basically I just want to be treated like a person, and like I want to like be able to like go into like a potential friendship and not have to like actively worry about like what's going to happen when I tell them about this aspect of my life that does not make me dangerous, does not make me threatening, but has a tendency for people just to leave when they find out. Like I want to be able to like go into a doctor's office, like a unknown new doctor, um, and not have to worry about like as they're like scanning my medical history and like get to the phrase, and then like just their whole demeanor changes, and suddenly like after a medical procedure I'm left with like nothing to clean myself up with. It's just it's shameful, and just like I'm a piece of meat, that an obligation, because like a legal obligation, because I came and it's like they didn't want to treat me but they did. And like not even like basic courtesy.
How often has that happened to you?
Um, I mean, like, as far as like number of instances, not very often because it's like I go to doctors a lot, but I tend to go to the same doctors. But it's like it's an issue to the point where it's like when I talk to like my primary care physician, like I got surgery recently, and when he was referring me to the surgeon, he was like, I was like, so like, hey dude, like, is this guy like judgmental about like crazy people, like kind of like, am I going to be treated like garbage, like the last time I got referred to like an unknown doctor, kind of thing. So it's like, it's not super frequent, but it's frequent enough that it's like, I worry about it, and beyond simple like the shame of it, it's like it makes me less likely to take care of other things, because it's like I don't want to deal with that. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't either, would you, Karen?
You mentioned earlier getting beat up because of your mental illness. Can you expand on that?
Oh yeah. I don't remember this super clearly, but it was when I was in school, going to school in Minnesota, like right after I gotten diagnosed, and like I was not taking meds, and I was not in a friendly environment. I was actually in kind of a hostile environment. Like there was like kids would like bang on my door in the middle of the night and threaten to kill me, and the administration was like, "Oh, boys will be boys," and I was it was kind of like a hopeless situation. So I would oftentimes just go for walks, and I didn't have Karen back then, because Karen, when I dissociate now on a walk and I'm with Karen, Karen will bring me home safely. Won't you, Karen? Yeah, you don't even mind, do you? But back then it was just kind of like, I would come to and I'd be in a totally different place. And I was apparently in a neighborhood that I shouldn't have been in. And like police showed up, and like I wasn't like super responsive or whatever. I doubt I was hostile, but yeah, got the crap beat out of me for and but like most of what I regret was like my sketchbook got destroyed, and that was like man, don't take an artist's sketchbook. But it was that was just the basic assumption, was like like beat him up, and that'll be the lesson.
So they weren't treating you as a person or a human being?
No, it was like, but it's like I don't like really remember like a whole lot of it. It's like ECT has like taken a lot of like the really like the vividness away of it away, and it's like the state of mind I was in at the time does not exactly lend itself to like clearly remembering exactly what happened. But it was like it was like I doubt I was doing anything illegal. Like I'm pretty sure I wasn't. I'm pretty sure I just looked scary, or at least like crazy, and that's not acceptable.
So how would you want people to treat you when you're developing a new friendship, and what parts of you do you want to highlight when you're making a new friendship, as opposed to I'm just my diagnosis, but who you are as a person?
Oh, well, I think like my current kind of like strategy, and it's kind of unfortunate that I have to have a strategy, like works pretty well. And it's basically like, I don't mention it like at first, and it's not because I like explicitly don't trust the individual that I'm interacting with. It's just kind of more like I feel like I have to like prove myself as like a worthy person, like outside of like what I am possibly inevitably going to tell them. So it's like I'm generally like fairly witty and kind of fun to be with and blah blah blah. And so that's what I concentrate on. And it's like, there may be like a few peculiarities about my existence, such as like, what do I do all day? Like, it's just he's always home, or like he's always on the stoop or whatever. Like he's always with his dog, and like their dogs aren't allowed in your apartment building. Like, why do you have a dog? And it's like, I don't like overtly lie, like like I avoid, like, oh yeah, I'm like a real estate like investor, but only in like, like Spanish real estate. But it's like, I don't tell the complete truth. It's kind of like I let those mysteries just kind of like be mysteries. And so like my hope is that like I will have like, kind of like, proven myself like such a worthy, like awesome, like trustworthy dude, that when I tell you like, here's a kind of like messed up thing about me, that isn't really messed up. It's just a reality about me. And it's like not my identity. Like it's something I have to live with like every day, every moment of every day. It influences like every decision I make, but it is not me. That it'll just be kind of like, oh yeah, like man, that's kind of that sucks. Like I'm sorry you go through that. And like I usually say like if you have any questions, like ask. But it's like I'm not gonna just like pour my heart out because it's like I have other people to do that with, and it's like our relationship doesn't have to be like based off of like me being crazy. It can be based off of like me being like kind of weird, or saying like dumb things or knowing random things. It like it's like the mental illness will be an aspect, but it's not like the main feature.
So how would you like them to respond when you tell them that information?
Honestly, like like ideally it would be like this thing where it's like, like whatever, like I accept you. But like really what would be more helpful is if like someone were like, you know what, like I can't handle that for whatever reason, like we just can't be friends. Or like, because that I would like respect. Because it's like, yeah, it's like that, it's a traumatizing thing. And like maybe they've been through things that I am not aware of. And, just because like we have been friends in the past doesn't mean we have to continue being friends. Like there are things that like end friendships. And like what ends up like being like worse is when, like it's like they're uncomfortable with my mental illness, but it's like they don't acknowledge that, or we don't talk about it, and then it suddenly becomes an issue and they have to leave, and I'm like, why? And so I would much rather just like have like kind of an upfront, like honest, like here's what I think reaction, as opposed to any kind of like disingenuine reaction. Disgenuine. I don't even know if that's a word. Like any kind of like dishonest reaction. It's like I want them to be real with me because I've been real with them.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm. Karen, any final comments?
She's asleep.
Okay.
I put her to sleep.
Well, good job.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Bye.